Heart rate dropping. 60, 50. 40, the monitor's beeping slowed to an agonizing crawl. Dr. Richard Sterling pressed his face against the glass of the operating theater, watching his daughter die. Inside, a young surgeon calmly lifted his scalpel. This surgeon was the only person who could save Emma. But there was one problem: this surgeon was the son of the poor patient Richard had sentenced to death 15 years ago. "God, please," Richard whispered. But God wasn't coming. Karma was. Stay with me until the end, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about justice. And if you love stories where arrogance meets its match, hit that subscribe button now. Dr. Richard Sterling wasn't just successful. He was legendary. At 52, he commanded the most exclusive private hospital in Manhattan, Sterling Medical Center. His hands had saved senators, movie stars, and tech billionaires. His fees? Starting at $250,000 for a consultation. His ego? Priceless. Richard stood in his corner office on the 15th floor, overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Italian marble desk. Original Picasso on the wall. Everything about his life screamed perfection. He adjusted his $5,000 Armani suit and checked his Patek Philippe watch. Another successful day. His assistant, Margaret, knocked softly. "Dr. Sterling, there's a man downstairs. Emergency case. Gunshot wound. He's asking for you specifically." Richard didn't even look up from his tablet. "Does he have insurance?" "No, sir. He's asking for charity care." Richard's lips curled into a cold smile. "Margaret, how many times do I need to explain this? Sterling Medical Center is not a charity. We're a business. A premium business. If he can't pay, send him to County General." "Sir, he's bleeding badly. County General is 45 minutes away. He might not make it." Richard finally looked up, his gray eyes like ice. "That's unfortunate. But it's not my problem. This hospital has standards. We can't just open our doors to every person who wanders in from the street. What would that say about our brand?" Margaret hesitated. "Sir, his son is with him. The boy is crying. He's only about 10 years old." For a brief moment, something flickered across Richard's face. His own daughter Emma was 9. But the moment passed like a shadow. "Tell security to escort them out. Politely. We're not monsters." Margaret nodded, her face tight with disapproval, and left. Richard returned to his tablet, scrolling through stock portfolios. 5 minutes later, his phone buzzed. It was his wife, Catherine. "Richard, don't forget Emma's piano recital tomorrow at 3 p.m. "Of course, darling. I wouldn't miss it. You said that about her birthday party last month." Richard sighed. "Catherine, I was in surgery. I saved a man's life. You saved a millionaire's life. You seem to have plenty of time for them." He clenched his jaw. "We'll discuss this later. I have rounds." The call ended. Richard stood and walked to the window. Below, he saw security guards escorting a man and a young boy out of the building. The man was limping badly, his shirt soaked in blood. The boy was crying, pulling at his father's arm. Richard watched them disappear around the corner. He felt nothing. In his world, money separated the worthy from the worthless. That's just how life worked. That night, Richard drove home to his estate in Westchester. A sprawling 8-bedroom mansion with tennis courts and a pool. Catherine barely spoke to him during dinner. Emma chattered about her piano lessons, but Richard's mind was elsewhere, calculating the profit margins on a new cardiac wing. "Daddy, will you come to my recital tomorrow?" Emma asked, her bright blue eyes looking up at him hopefully. "Of course, sweetheart. Daddy promises." But even as he said it, Richard knew his promises meant nothing if a wealthy patient called. 15 years passed like water through fingers. Richard's empire grew. Sterling Medical Center expanded to 3 locations. His net worth hit $120 million. But something else grew too, his emptiness. Catherine had divorced him 8 years ago. She'd grown tired of being married to a man who loved money more than people. Richard barely fought it. He was too busy building his legacy. Emma, now 24, had become distant. She was finishing medical school at Johns Hopkins, but she rarely called. When she did, conversations were stiff and formal. Richard told himself it didn't matter. She'd understand someday. Success required sacrifice. One rainy October evening, Richard sat in his office reviewing charts when his phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Sterling. Dad? Emma's voice was shaking. Richard sat up straight. Emma? What's wrong? I'm at Mercy Hospital. There was an accident. A car hit me. Dad, I'm hurt. I'm hurt bad. Richard's blood turned to ice. What? Where? I'm coming right now. Dad, they're saying I need surgery. Emergency surgery. Something about internal bleeding. Dad, I'm scared. Stay calm, baby. I'm on my way. Which hospital? Mercy Hospital. In Baltimore. Richard was already grabbing his coat. I'll be there in 3 hours. Hold on, Emma. Just hold on. He ran to his car, his heart hammering. For the first time in decades, Richard Sterling felt something more powerful than arrogance, fear. The drive to Baltimore was a blur of rain and panic. Richard's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He called ahead to Mercy Hospital, demanding the best surgeon, the best equipment. Money was no object. When he arrived, a nurse directed him to the surgical floor. Emma was already in pre-op. Where's my daughter? Emma Sterling. A young doctor approached him. She was calm, professional. Mr. Sterling, I'm Dr. Reyes. Your daughter sustained significant internal injuries. We need to operate immediately. Then operate. What are you waiting for? Sir, we have a problem. The injury is extremely complex. It requires a vascular surgeon with specialized training. We have one on staff, but he's currently in another surgery. Richard's face flushed red. Then get someone else. I'll pay whatever it takes. Dr. Reyes shook her head. It's not about money, sir. There's only one surgeon in this hospital qualified for this procedure. His name is Dr. David Morales. He's our chief of vascular surgery. But he won't be available for another 2 hours. 2 hours? My daughter could die in 2 hours. Sir, I understand your fear, but Dr. Morales is the best. If we rush this with someone less experienced, the outcome could be worse. Richard wanted to scream, but he forced himself to breathe. Fine. Fine. But I want to speak to this Dr. Morales the moment he's available. Dr. Reyes nodded and walked away. Richard paced the hallway like a caged animal. He called every contact he had, trying to find another surgeon, but it was 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. No one was available. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a man in scrubs approached. He was younger than Richard expected, maybe mid-30s. Latino, with dark eyes and a calm demeanor. Mr. Sterling. I'm Dr. David Morales. Richard grabbed his arm. You have to save her. My daughter. Please. Dr. Morales studied him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes. Recognition? No, something deeper. Something colder. I'll do my best, Mr. Sterling. But I need you to understand something. Your daughter's injuries are severe. Even with the best surgical intervention, there's only a 40% chance of survival. Richard's legs nearly gave out. 40%. That's not enough. You have to do better than that. I'll do everything in my power. But you need to prepare yourself. Richard grabbed the doctor's shoulders. Please. I'm begging you. She's all I have. I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't been a good father. But please, give her a chance. For a moment, Dr. Morales's expression softened. Then he nodded. I'll do my best. As Dr. Morales walked toward the operating room, Richard collapsed into a chair. His whole body shook. He'd spent his entire life believing he was in control, that money and power could solve anything. Now he was helpless. Completely, utterly helpless. Richard wasn't allowed in the operating room, but he stood at the observation window, watching through the glass. Emma lay on the table, pale and still. Machines beeped rhythmically. A team of nurses and anesthesiologists moved with practiced precision. Dr. Morales stood at the head of the table, his hands steady. He made the first incision with a surgeon's calm confidence. Hours passed. Richard didn't move. His eyes were glued to the scene below. At one point, a nurse rushed out. "Mr. Sterling, you should sit down. This could take a while." "I'm not moving." The nurse sighed and left him alone. Inside the operating room, complications arose. Emma's blood pressure dropped suddenly. BP falling. 90/60. 80/50. Dr. Morales's voice cut through the tension. "Increase fluids. Get me 2 units of O-. Now. Doctor, she's bleeding from the hepatic artery." "I see it." "Clamp. Quickly." Richard watched in horror as the monitors showed Emma's vitals crashing. His daughter was dying right in front of him. Heart rate dropping. 60, 50. 40. Richard pressed his face against the glass, tears streaming down his face. "No, no, no. Please, God. Please." Inside, Dr. Morales worked with impossible calm. His hands moved like a musician conducting a symphony. Clamp. Suture. Cauterize. Every movement was precise, deliberate. "Doctor, we're losing her." "No, we're not. Increase AP. I need better visualization here." One of the nurses spoke quietly. "Dr. Morales, maybe we should consider." "I said we're not losing her." His voice was steel. Richard had never felt so powerless in his life. All his money, all his connections, all his arrogance meant nothing now. His daughter's life was in the hands of a man he'd never met before tonight. And then, slowly, the monitors began to stabilize. BP rising. 70/40. 80/50. Heart rate coming back up. 50, 60. 70. Dr. Morales didn't celebrate. He simply continued working, his focus absolute. Another hour passed. Finally, Dr. Morales stepped back from the table. "Close her up." "Nice work, everyone." The team exhaled collectively. One nurse wiped her forehead. Another smiled behind her mask. Richard's knees buckled. Emma was alive. His daughter was alive. Minutes later, Dr. Morales emerged from the operating room, pulling off his surgical mask. His face was exhausted but composed. Richard stumbled toward him. "Is she?" "She's stable. The next 24 hours are critical, but if there are no complications, she should make a full recovery." Richard grabbed Dr. Morales and hugged him, sobbing openly. "Thank you. Thank you. You saved her life. I can never repay you." Dr. Morales stood stiffly in the embrace, then gently pulled away. You're welcome, Mr. Sterling. Please, call me Richard. You've given me my daughter back. How can I ever thank you? Dr. Morales looked at him for a long moment. There was something unreadable in his expression. You can't. Richard blinked. What? You asked how you can thank me. The answer is you can't. Some debts can never be repaid, Mr. Sterling. I don't understand. Dr. Morales's eyes hardened. Do you remember a man named Carlos Morales? Richard's face went blank. I don't think so. 15 years ago. Gunshot wound. Emergency case. He came to Sterling Medical Center begging for help. He had a 10-year-old son with him. That son was me. The blood drained from Richard's face. The memory came flooding back. The bleeding man. The crying boy. The security guards escorting them away. You're. Yes. I'm that boy. And my father died that night. He bled out in the back of a taxi trying to get to County General. I held his hand while he took his last breath. Richard staggered backward. I didn't know. You didn't care. Dr. Morales's voice was quiet but filled with steel. You didn't care because he didn't have money. To you, he was worthless. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Your apology doesn't bring my father back. Richard's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, his whole body shaking. Then why? Why did you save Emma? You could have let her die. You could have had your revenge. Dr. Morales looked down at him with something that might have been pity. Because I'm not you, Mr. Sterling. I became a doctor to save lives. All lives. Rich or poor. Black or white. Sinner or saint. That's what doctors are supposed to do. He turned to walk away, then paused. Your daughter will recover. But you should know something, every time I operate, I think about my father. I think about how one person's greed killed him. And I swear I will never be that person. Dr. Morales walked down the hallway and disappeared around the corner. Richard sat alone in the waiting room, his perfect world shattered into pieces. Emma spent 3 days in the ICU. Richard never left the hospital. He slept in uncomfortable chairs, ate vending machine food, and watched his daughter breathe. On the 3rd day, Emma woke up. Dad? Richard was at her side instantly. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here. Emma's eyes were foggy from medication, but she managed a weak smile. You stayed. Of course I stayed. I'll always stay. I promise. You've made that promise before. Richard's throat tightened. I know. And I broke it. I broke so many promises. But Emma, I swear to you, things are going to be different now. Emma studied her father's face. She saw something new there. Something she'd never seen before, humility. What happened, Dad? You look different. Richard took a deep breath and told her everything. He told her about Carlos Morales. About turning away a dying man because he couldn't pay. About Dr. David Morales, who'd saved her life despite every reason not to. By the end, Emma was crying. Dad, how could you? I don't know. I was blind. I thought money was everything. I thought success meant never showing weakness, never giving anything away for free. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Emma reached out and took his hand. You were wrong. But you're here now. That's what matters. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not. But I'm giving it anyway. Richard broke down completely, his shoulders shaking with sobs. For the first time in decades, he felt something other than pride, shame. Deep, burning shame for the man he'd been. A week later, Emma was discharged. Richard brought her back to his Manhattan penthouse to recover. But something in him had changed fundamentally. He called an emergency board meeting at Sterling Medical Center. The board members gathered in the conference room, confused. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard began, "I'm announcing a new policy effective immediately. Sterling Medical Center will now allocate 20% of our surgical capacity to pro bono cases. Patients without insurance or means to pay will be treated with the same quality of care as our paying patients." The room erupted. "Richard, that's financial suicide. Our shareholders will never approve this. We'll lose millions." Richard raised his hand. "I don't care. This isn't up for debate. This is happening. And if the board votes against it, I'll resign and start my own charity hospital." The room fell silent. They knew Richard meant it. "But Richard," one board member said quietly, "why? Why now?" Richard thought about Carlos Morales bleeding in the rain. About a 10-year-old boy crying for his father. About Dr. David Morales saving Emma despite every reason not to. "Because it's the right thing to do. And I should have done it a long time ago." The policy passed narrowly. Some board members resigned in protest. But Richard didn't care. For the first time in his life, he felt something more valuable than wealth, purpose. 6 months later, Richard tracked down Dr. David Morales. He found him working at Mercy Hospital, just as dedicated as ever. "Dr. Morales, may I speak with you?" David looked up from his charts, his expression guarded. "Mr. Sterling. How can I help you?" "I wanted to tell you that Sterling Medical Center has started a pro bono program. We've treated over 200 patients without insurance in the last 6 months. And I wanted to ask if you'd consider joining our staff. As chief of surgery." David's eyebrows rose. "You're offering me a job?" "Yes. With a salary of $800,000 a year and complete autonomy over patient selection. Money will never be a barrier to treatment again. Not on my watch." David was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you taught me something I should have learned decades ago. A life is a life. Rich or poor, every person deserves a chance. My father died because I forgot that. I won't forget again." David set down his pen. "Your father didn't die, Mr. Sterling. My father did. I know. And I can never bring him back. But maybe I can honor his memory by making sure no one else dies the way he did." David studied Richard's face, searching for deception. He found only sincerity. "I'll think about it." 3 months later, Dr. David Morales accepted the position. He walked through the halls of Sterling Medical Center, the same halls where his father had been turned away 15 years ago. But now, those halls would save lives regardless of who could pay. Richard stood in his office, looking out at Central Park. The view was the same, but he was different. Emma called him every day now. They were rebuilding their relationship slowly, carefully. His net worth had dropped by $30 million since the pro bono program began. He didn't care. Money couldn't buy what he'd gained, redemption. One evening, Richard received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a photo of a young boy standing next to Dr. David Morales. The boy was smiling, holding a trophy. On the back, a note. "This is my nephew, Carlos Jr., named after my father. He wants to be a doctor when he grows up. Thank you for making sure he'll grow up in a world where that's possible. David." Richard put the photo on his desk next to a picture of Emma. 2 lives saved. One by skill, one by grace. He'd spent his whole life building an empire of wealth. But in the end, what saved him wasn't money. It was Mercy. 5 years later, Sterling Medical Center had become a national model for integrated care. The pro bono program had expanded to serve over 2,000 patients annually. Richard had written a book about his transformation, donating all proceeds to medical charities. Emma finished her residency and joined the staff at Sterling Medical Center, working alongside Dr. Morales. She specialized in trauma surgery, inspired by the man who'd saved her life. Richard retired from active practice but stayed on as chairman of the board, ensuring the hospital's mission never wavered. One day, he visited the memorial wall in the hospital's main lobby. It honored patients and staff who'd made significant contributions to medicine. At the top was a new plaque. In memory of Carlos Morales. A reminder that every life has value. Richard stood before it, his eyes misty. A hand touched his shoulder. Dr. David Morales stood beside him. He would have been proud, Richard said quietly. Yes, David replied. He would have. They stood together in silence, two men bound by tragedy and transformed by grace. Richard had learned the hardest lesson of his life, that karma isn't about punishment. It's about learning. About becoming better. About honoring the people we failed by making sure we never fail again. And in the end, that's what makes us human. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about redemption, justice, and the power of second chances. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Even surgeons with ice-cold hearts. Leave a comment below. Do you believe people can really change? Or is karma just revenge with a better name? Let's talk.